right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome here to the final short track stop on the 4th season of the Dark Horse Racing Series, as we are here at the Iowa Speedway, race number 15 on the season. 4 races left, including here tonight. We've seen here in the past that the short tracks, they've kind of mixed things up as far as the point standings. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Scott Rankin. And Scott, I'm here tonight. Close quarter racing for these guys here. Obviously, we've talked about those top 5 trying to either keep their championship hopes alive or at least make their way into the championship picture by the time we get to Indianapolis. Talk about a track that try and do that at here today, though, because one wrong move, that could be championship hopes gone and not much time for recovery.
Yeah, we're into the very tail end of the season now. Things are so incredibly tight. With the last few weeks, that championship lead has seesawed. We've seen Henry Bennett at the top. We've seen Rick Ravon at the top. So it's pretty much gone Ravon, then Henry Bennett took over, then Ravon back at the top again this week. So, look, I was talking to Rick Ravon before tonight. He said he was very comfortable. He actually ran a whole bunch of laps in an open practice session with the rest of the league, and he says he regrets it because he was so much faster than everyone else. Everyone come out, watched him drive the track. All of a sudden, everyone else's games came up a mile and a half. So, look, it's going to be tight at the top here tonight.
Taking a look here at Charles Teed, the defending winner of this race from 1 year ago, looking to double down. Now, obviously, at this point in time, Charles Teed not in the championship picture, but even though there's only 5 drivers right now, we got mathematically still in the hunt for that title. That doesn't mean that the other drivers that are taking the green flag here tonight aren't trying to pick up that checkered flag as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good opportunity, especially if pit strategy plays its way into this one. Anything effectively could happen, right? We could go green the whole way. We could all of a sudden just get caution after caution after caution. It's one of those tracks that it's not a super speedway, but I think that probably makes it more of a wild card in the IndyCars.
Now, I'm almost wondering as well if after today, even though we've still got a couple of races left to go before we get to the Indy 500, we had 5 drivers coming into tonight that we had designated as those that we think could be still in the hunt for the championship. We might be down to 3 because 2 notable names that are not in the field here tonight for a second straight week. Robert Maleska III is not in the field, and also Matt Wagner is not in the field. And these were 2 drivers that came into this race a total of 66 and 79 points out of the points lead, respectively.
Yeah, well, you got to remember that ultimately for Robert Maleska, last week was the first miss round that he effectively had. Now, remember as well that these guys do have drop rounds. It automatically picks up their worst finish. So I think Wagner is a lot closer to this championship battle than we necessarily think. He's been pretty consistent right throughout the season. But the issue is he's also got a fair few, 8s, 9s, lower down sort of list standings. There's a lot to play out, but if Maleska's not here, that will be his night over. If Wagner's not here, that's it. These guys are done. Championship down to 3.
There's the fastest car in practice, Henry Bennett, who's trying to pick up his 6th win on the season. Despite the fact that he and Rick Ravon combined have won 8 of the races this year, it's still really close between the top 3 for the point stands after what we had happen last week at the Phoenix International Raceway. 8 points, Rick Ravon over Henry Bennett, only 16 points back Nick DeGroot, who right now sits atop of the board and is currently scheduled to lead us to green if things don't change in these final 30 seconds.
Yeah, and I don't expect him to, and that's a phenomenal lap from Nick DeGroot. And you got to remember the size of this track here as well. It is pretty short. We're going to have 16.5 second laps at qualifying pace. Most of the laps are going to be running the 17 to 18 sort of second range. Laps are going to tumble by quick and fast tonight. We're going to have nearly 4 laps a second. Pit lane entry is going to be such a huge factor. I've watched so many drivers at the end of their qualifying come around, trial another pit lane entry when they're on that lower fuel. Every single driver I've seen do it, locked front left tire. Everyone. Not a single driver has made it to pit road without that issue. So this first green flag pit stop is going to have question flags all over it.
Be 150 laps here tonight. 17 drivers scheduled to take the green flag, and indeed Nick DeGroot is going to be the one to capture the pole position here tonight. That is going to be his first pole of the season. Can we believe we're saying that this late in the year? And he'll be alongside of Eric Peterson, who for the second straight week will be starting on the front row. Jimmy Drynan, Gale Brooks, and AJ Hobson. They are going to be the completion of the top 5 as we take a look here at the rest of the starting lineup for today's event. And I said 17 drivers that are going to be taking the green. Looks like it actually might be 16 drivers, so slightly small field here tonight. And to your point, with it being a smaller field, we more than likely will see pit road coming into play. The question is, though, with 150 laps scheduled here tonight, how many times they're going to have to make that execution on pit road?
Now, I haven't actually got any numbers for you, unfortunately, Seth, in terms of max fuel distance. What I do know is that we're at another short track, and that means that right front, it's going to take a lot of abuse. The benefit of Iowa, it's an open corner. There's multiple lanes through the corner. There are lanes here that can really ease it off and keep that momentum up. I'm expecting to see a lot of the guys riding around a lot more towards the top of the racetrack than they might necessarily normally do for a quick lap and those sorts of things. Looking after the tires, keeping their speeds up, because that momentum down the straightaways, they're short straightaways, but it's still just barely long enough to matter.
So 15 drivers took time. 16th place is going to be Nicholas Winook here for today's race at the Iowa Speedway. And also, a thing I got to wonder here, too, when you look at the rest of the tracks we've got coming up, we've got Long Beach. It's going to be our final road course this season. Of course, things will be very spread out there. We'll probably see some pack racing at Texas Motor Speedway in a couple of weeks' time. And then, of course, the championship gets decided at Indianapolis. I mean, would a short track like Iowa be the place if you are a Nick DeGroot or if you are a Rick Ravon trying to get the points lead away? Is this where you look to capitalize, to gain the most positions and subsequently the most points?
A lot can go wrong at short tracks. A lot can go very, very right. Guys in stock cars tend to say that the big question marks and the big unknowns, they tend to be the super speedways. In these style of cars, I think it's a lot more of the short tracks. A lot more drivers can win at the short tracks because the way that these cars drive, the closeness together, and the running speed, it's so much higher when you compare it to a stock car. The room for error is so much lower. And things are just going to happen so quickly in front of you. That's why we have the fast repair here in the Dark Horse series. That is his exact purpose.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to bring up here that we will have an extra lap of pacing with this being a track less than a mile in length, 0.875 miles. So we do end up having 2 pace laps here for the start of tonight's event.
Yeah, and you'll have a few extra pacing laps right throughout the event as well, just because of the nature of that track as well. It's to get the field condensed. Laps here are very quick. Don't be too concerned about that, and the pacing's not going to be too long. So again, don't be too concerned about that. Goals for these drivers. So remember what I talk about every single week. Get yourself into that race. The first 50 laps is making sure that you feel strong coming towards that last 100, especially that last 50. Set yourself up. Focus on the end of that race. Let some guys go here if you really need to. I'm really curious to see how easy it is to overtake, because look how deep in the pack both Henry Bennett and Rick Ravon are.
Almost 30 degrees higher track temperature than it is the ambient temperature out here, so obviously going to be a little bit slick for these drivers as well. Nick DeGroot last season led 7 laps here at the Iowa Speedway en route to a top 5 5th place. He looks to better that today as he brings us to the green, and we're underway at Iowa.
Yeah, have a look at those short track styled high downforce rear, front and rear wing packages as well. See the extra flarings right around the car creating that extra downforce. That tells you we're short track racing.
Side by side for the 3rd position, AJ Hobson is going to complete the pass around Gale Brooks. Brooks now under fire from Craig Forsyth. No surprise to see Forsyth making an appearance here late in the season as we're drawing closer to Indy 500 weekend, trying to defend that title, making his 3rd start in the year. And the battle for the lead might be on. Eric Peterson did not let Nick DeGroot get away. He's trying that top side.
And you know what? It's so good to see so many drivers, as this season's progressed, all of a sudden the drivers that were running mid-pack, a little bit lower than that, all of a sudden starting to progress. Take a look at Henry Bennett, having to fight his way through the pack. This is the guy that does the setup, Seth.
Qualified in this one back in the 6th position. That's where he currently runs as he tries to get around Gale Brooks. There's Rick Ravon, our points leader, on the top side there as well. And last year's winner, at a short track. It's got the space for it, but it's not necessarily advised, and they all made it work.
And this is why Rick Ravon's leading the championship. His qualifying efforts all season long, they haven't been fancy, they haven't been phenomenal. He's got a couple poles in there. It's not been great at a lot of the tracks. This is where he makes his money.
Got ourselves a lead change. Eric Peterson, by almost a full car length, leads that lap over Nick DeGroot. And AJ Hobson right here as well. Got a good three-car battle for the top position. Rick Ravon, Craig Forsyth back and forth and fifth. Say, hey, keep racing it up. We'll be up there in a second.
Yeah, can you guys keep battling for us? We really want the ability to get all the way up there. Henry Bennett's still struggling, hasn't made that pass. David Cook has managed to get around Henry Bennett. So Henry Bennett's lost spaces to both Rick Ravon and his teammate. Oh, man. The Gruel Charger, it's on its path forward once again here tonight.
Lost 2 spots since the start of the race has Henry Bennett. Charles Teed has kind of gone nowhere. The defending winner started 9th. That's where he currently runs. Led 21 laps last season en route to the victory. Did not lead the most laps, though. That was Victor Santos, who led 29. And look at this, DeGroot, Peterson, neither one can decide who wants to lead the laps here. When as soon as one gets cleared, the other one crosses over. And Hobson's trying to figure out, hey, can I get into this mix? Because he wants to make a move for second place, I do believe. But every time he does, somebody's there trying to make the move for the lead.
Yeah, that's important as well because AJ Hobson's just got to attach himself to these. I talked about it. This is a driver that last week, or in the last couple of weeks, he's been a little bit out of sorts, which has been phenomenal for him. He's actually been up at the pointy end. He hasn't had real pace in the early phases of this season. Now, all of a sudden, it's all coming together. It's all coming up trumps for AJ Hobson. What a drive for him.
Riding on board with Rick Ravon, he is on the move, up 8 positions from where he started in 11th. He's now up in the podium and gunning for more on the back bumper there of Eric Peterson. The thing that I've been noticing here for this 2-car, he is able to execute 3 and 4 faster than anybody. He carries so much speed off the final corner.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Remember what I said, keep that momentum up. Look at where he's transitioning the car. Everyone else is running a lane higher, a lane lower on entry. He's that lane higher, and look, he does the over-under, the crisscross, gets it done on Peterson.
His teammate David Cook also working his way up through the field. He's up 8 spots from his 13th starting position. Now looking to the inside of AJ Hobson, that's for 4th place. Craig Forsyth looking on, and there's Henry Bennett in the 7th position, trying to get up here into this lead group as well.
Yeah, check this out. I mean, look, right the way throughout, it's not a draft track. It's, IndyCar comes here, they want to run the high downforce package. They want that grip in the corners. And ultimately, you can't squabble over positions like you really think you can. What you need to do is settle it out, have some single file running. If Peterson and DeGroot had worked together, they would have been miles ahead of this pack. Now they've got Ravon in the mix.
Ravon jumped on the top side there on DeGroot, couldn't make it work, but now he'll go to the inside 3 and 4, pushes up there, had to bail out of the throttle, will have to settle for second place for the time being, try and get the momentum back to get back to DeGroot and move up to the top position. One thing I'm already noticing here, Scott, 15 laps in, and these drivers are running anywhere from 3 to 4 tenths slower than they did at the start of this one, so obviously tires are going to be a big concern for these guys and may end up leading to some pretty interesting strategies if we get to that first round of green flag pit stop.
And one of the big benefits that Nick DeGroot is going to have over this entire pack, he's had to clean air just all but a couple laps when Eric Peterson was leading it. Eric Peterson was fighting him. That's actually going to play back into Rick Ravon's hands. Ravon has had to fight his way through the pack. He's put a lot of stress, a lot of extra temperature through that right front. Big sand by Ravon.
And he's going to clear for the top position. Nicely done there by Rick Ravon. He will go to the point. Dives low to block any advance of DeGroot, cross him over through 3 and 4, but DeGroot's not going away quietly. He still wants to get the top spot back. It's a battle for the clean air here between 2 of the championship favorites.
Yeah, don't burn your tires up too much is what I'm thinking in Nick DeGroot's favor. If he can just keep looking after these things, Ravon has put a lot of stress, a lot of energy through that right front. It's gonna fade. It is gonna fade in a big way at the back end of this run. I tell you what, Seth, I don't want to jinx things, but look at this. 20 laps in, I thought we'd have a caution for sure. I thought we would have had 2.
It's very spread out right now. Everybody pretty much giving the room necessary when they're in the side-by-side battles. We've even seen when drivers have those slight mistakes, the car sliding up, they've bailed out of the throttle and not made contact with the driver to their outside. Now, 3 drivers we've got to keep an eye on here that have good numbers. Obviously, Iowa made its debut on the schedule last season, so not a whole lot of notes to go off of, but you've got 3 drivers in the field that have top 5 finishes here. Obviously, Charles Teed, the defending winner, Nick DeGroot, who finished 5th, but keep an eye on that 27 to Craig Forsyth there as well. He finished 3rd here 1 year ago.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Seth, are you bringing that crystal ball out? Can I get that on a t-shirt, please?
Nope, no crystal ball, just statistics this time. No predictions. I got the facts to back them up.
Look, now I want to get you to get that crystal ball out. Who do you think's going to win out here today, Seth?
I'll tell you what, just based off of what I saw in practice, a couple of guys caught my eyes on how they were able to work their way through traffic. Rick Raybon was one of them, but another guy that I also noticed was really making a lot of good moves was Henry Bennett, which really surprises me that he's back here in that 6th position. Saw him a couple of times actually get enough momentum to make moves 3 wide on the inside. So the fact that he hasn't been able to quite get this setup dialed in right now kind of surprises me that he's just mired back outside the top 5.
Well, if you have a look in those first 10 laps, the reason why he hasn't been able to make a lot of progress is in those situations where Ravon was just being a lot more aggressive. Henry Bennett was actually just boxed in. He had a car in front of him, he had a car to his inside, literally nowhere he could have gone. There was no way he could make that move actually happen. So ultimately, I think he was just a victim of bad luck, a victim of circumstance, if you will. But at the same time, he's the one that put himself in that position. He would have been able to see Rick Ravon's runs coming on him, all of those guys, David Cook. You know, David Cook's transition past him. He's up to P4 at this point in time. Ultimately, I think what that is going to do, though, is Henry Bennett's actually really starting to show some pace through this segment of the race. And it's just him and Rick Ravon that are the fastest cars out on track by some margin at this point in time.
And if last year's running order is anything to go by, we had 34 drivers take the green in last year's Iowa race. But bear in mind, it kind of proved you don't necessarily have to start at the front of the field to finish up at the front. We had drivers like Gale Brooks, who started 33rd in that field and brought it home in the 6th position. Oscar Gonzalez brought it home runner-up, starting back outside of the top 20 and 21st. So some of these guys that are mired back in the top 10 and maybe even outside of the top 10, do not count them out yet.
No, that's just it. It's a short track. Short track racing can anything can happen. Don't forget, at this rate, we're going to have green flag pit stops happening. We're also going to have traffic starting to cause an issue. Probably double this sort of lap time. No, maybe not. Maybe. I'm looking from lap 45 onwards. Traffic's going to be causing an issue. Remember what I said about the qualifying session? Nobody got onto pit lane without locking up those right fronts. Pit road is going to be the big decider today.
I think Nick DeGroot's having a little deja vu from last week. Looks out the windshield, sees Rick Raybon, looks outside the rearview mirror, and sees David Cook. He was in a sandwich between those teammates in a number of restarts last week, and now he's got them miring him in that 2nd position again.
Yeah, look, I mean, you know, you say deja vu. What I see is just good, consistent drivers making their way to the front. Qualifying's a big... you know what I've learned from qualifying the last few weeks? Qualifying means precisely nothing when you're a driver with these guys' talents. Look, these guys have been able to run it quick and consistently. Some of the guys out there that made very quick laps in qualifying aren't able to maintain that pace. Very aggressive on the tires. I'm looking at AJ
got a couple cars that got the wall right there. One of them was David Cook. Craig Forsyth was the other. So we're starting to see the tightness of the dirty air come into play, maybe even overheating that right front tire.
Well, that's a big, big issue because David Cook got all the way to the bottom of the track and then he just wanted to get back to the throttle. Both of them, wow, that's... Look, what you see and what happens is when you're in the car...
Peterson knocks down the wall off of turn 4.
Knocks down the wall repeatedly too. He'll come to pit lane for sure. My word. Peterson's fallen like a rock. He's 14th now. He's last. He's going to be last.
Yeah. He's not even on pit road. He actually went through the infield grass. Pit road is separated from the racetrack by a wall. We've got, I believe there's like a road course section there on the front straightaway, and that's what Eric Peterson had to use to gather the car back up. He's limping that thing back to pit road.
And good job by Eric Peterson as well. He's recognized that he was going to be a hazard, and he got the car off track as soon as he safely possibly could. Now he's keeping it down the apron. Yeah, he's going to lose a whole bunch of time, but also he respects his competition enough to make sure that he doesn't take them out of the equation for something that he's got to deal with.
That's a tough break there for Eric Peterson, who is now on pit road after that thing was way off the pace with the hard hit to the outside wall of turn 4. Battle here for second. We did have another driver about 10 laps ago that actually came down pit road for an unscheduled stop. That was Nicholas Winook, and he has been on pit road for the last 4.5 minutes or so. So unless something happens here and we have some DNFs and he gets back out there, he will probably finish in the 16th position. And there you saw the pass for second place completed by David Cook. So move him up to the runner-up spot. Nick DeGroot going to try and battle back there in that third spot, but you see that car just get really tight off of the corner.
And you can see it now that the tires have sort of burned off a fair bit. Look at the lines that David Cook's starting to run. He's a lot further off at the bottom now that he's got control of those corners. He's running his own line. Have a look at where he enters 3 and 4 here. Doesn't get all the way down the bottom. Runs a groove up. He's going to maintain a whole bunch more momentum. He opens the corner up as well. He doesn't have to tip the car a lot further in. It really looks after that right front tire.
Really surprising here was right on board with Henry Bennett. I was looking to see about some of these guys up inside the top 5 and see if they were maybe fighting with the race car, because I've seen a number of guys really pushing up off the corner, and it looks like they jerked the wheel to the left to make sure they don't hit the outside wall.
Oh, Rayvon's coming to pits. Rayvon's in. DeGroot's in as well. David Cook's going to go another lap. No, they're all in.
Yeah. Everybody is coming down. That, I believe, was Todd Schneider, the bright yellow machine just ahead of the race leader. He's just barely on the tail end of the lead lap. Groot, Cook, all going to come down pit road, so maybe getting a little bit of an idea here of what the fuel window is for these guys around the 40 to 45 mark. Forsyth locks the tires up there, nearly loops the thing around completely, actually goes into 2 slides before he's even going to get around to the commitment line.
Wow. Yeah, I saw him. He come off turn 2, and the car was just all sorts. He was trying to get towards the left-hand side of the road. And this is important as well for Henry Bennett, because he has now showed his cards. This is what he was doing. It was difficult out in traffic, and so he opted to just bail out a little bit, conserve his stuff, look after fuel limits, look after everything. He has really looked after his fuel numbers, and he's gone a few extra laps on the field.
Look out on pit road entry there for Jeff Highsong and Jimmy Drynan as Gail Brooks spun it around there and had to wait until those drivers got by to get pointed in the right direction. Charles Teed is going to miss pit road entry.
Is he going to miss pit road entry, or is that intentional?
He completely overshot it. He was trying to come down pit road, completely missed it. That's going to cost him some valuable track time.
Has he got enough fuel to get back is my next question. No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't got enough fuel. If you have a look at how slow his car's going, that is not intentional. He's out of fuel.
Oh, wow. He's over in turn 1, right in the center of 1 and 2. I don't think that thing's going to make it back around. He's already
got to try
between the 40-mile-per-hour mark.
He's got to try. So the issue is if he tows from here, he will lose far more time than trying to get it back. That's why he's trying. This is the worst part is you can see everyone going past. That's the benefit of towing. You don't have to watch your competition just fly on by you because of a mistake you've made. The worst part is this is the quickest way for him to get himself back in the race. He's got to do this. Oh.
Break for last year's winner, Charles Teed, who's already lost 1 lap, and more than likely he's going to lose another. A short track, so it doesn't take long for the race leader Rick Ravon to turn laps here, and when he's turning laps and hitting top speed of about 200 going into a corner, and Charles Teed is hovering between 20 to 40 miles per hour trying to get back to pit road, it's definitely academic that the fact that he is going to be way out of the hunt of going back-to-back here at Iowa.
Yeah, Charles, he's out of fuel. I'm just watching his speed slowly tick down. And remember, I'm in kilometers an hour as well, so I can see it tick down a little bit. You know, kilometers an hour has more graduations in it. Means you get to pick up more of the minutiae and how his speed ticks down. He's definitely out of fuel. He's doing 20 kilometers an hour on pit road right now. That's going to be about 15, 16 mile an hour.
Of all places, a short track is where you do not want to make mistakes, and we've seen a number of drivers make them here, and only on our first round of green flag pit stops. Gail Brooks spinning, coming on to pit road entry. Charles Teed missing pit road, and it looks like Jim Herrick, who decided to stay out an extra lap than everybody, he got busted with a speeding penalty, so now he's off the lead lap.
I remember what I said at the start of this race. I said that pit road was going to be a big deciding factor. Have a look at Rick Ravon now. He's out there and he's in traffic, so all of a sudden his race starts to get a little bit compromised. Got to use that head. He's got a big head on him. He knows what to do. He's very, very smart, very intelligent driver, but at the same time knows when to be aggressive. That is the traits of a very, very good driver. You cannot get to the front if you aren't aggressive. Have a look at Henry Bennett. Rick Ravon, very similar outlooks at the start of this race, very similar positions. In fact, Henry Bennett was a little bit further forward. Bennett opted to go for the safer route. Sometimes you just got to push. A driver that can push when they need to push is always a driver that puts themselves ahead of the competition.
Rick Ravon certainly setting a blistering pace. He's got almost 3 seconds back to Nick DeGroot, who's going to have to deal with traffic momentarily. Plus, he's got David Cook breathing down his neck for that second spot. Looks like Dale Brooks and Benjamin Combs, they got put a lap down by the race leader. So right now, 9 drivers on the lead lap. So the good news for some of these guys, they got onto pit road, they executed it well, they didn't get hit with a speeding penalty, very little mistakes. Problem is, if that's the furthest they can make it on a tank of fuel, there's 2 more trips to pit road in their future.
Yeah, which is a big issue. I mean, the other thing is tires. Tires are such a big factor. I'd be shortening these runs as much as I possibly can, but ultimately, look at what's happened in the last few weeks as well. We've had a lot of these races. Mine goes back to Gateway, which actually went here for a step, but, you know, that's a different story. Guys opted to try the undercut, caution come out straight away. They got screwed. They tried to give themselves an alternative strategy. They tried to do something different, and things just didn't go their way. Ultimately, these first 2 stops, I think you're going to run the tank all the way out to prevent that. After that, get that strategy head ticking.
If you're Rick Ravon right now, do you basically just have a strategy in mind and just stick to it? If you're Nick DeGroot, David Cook, are you forced to try and do something different?
100%. 100%. Right now, Rick Ravon, he's going to be sitting there, and in his head, he says, I've got this race by about 2.5, 3 seconds, somewhere in that realm of things. Right now, I don't have to push. I can do whatever I need to do to maintain that margin. From here on out, it's about gap management. It's not about running away. It's not about pushing yourself. You've got to remember with tires and ovals, there's such a big fall off in these things, in their integrity, in the way that the car drives, in the way that you manage traffic. All of these factors play into it. Right now, you're going to say, if you're in Rick Ravon's shoes, I'd back it down a little bit, look after the car, look after the tires, pick up this lap traffic when the opportunity presents itself, and keep myself alive, and make sure that I maintain that gap to Nick DeGroot. I don't need to push any further. DeGroot's got to come after me.
Got ourselves a nice little 3-car battle for the 6th position. Haisong in the 18 was starting to reel in AJ Hobson for 6th place. Got a little high off of turn 2. That has now dropped him back into the clutches of Jimmy Drynan. So this is the battle right now for 6th, 7th, and 8th, going on just outside of the top 5.
And you got to remember, the leader's only a couple seconds back off of these guys as well. So Rick Ravon's going to be creeping up on these guys when they get the opportunity. Right now, Craig Forsyth's had a big moment, or potentially passing some lap traffic in the last lap, had a very slow one, so we'll get to see that start to normalize over this lap. AJ Hobson lost a lot of time on that lap, as you saw, but Jeff Haisong as well, he's losing time in that draft. He's putting a lot of load on that front right corner. These guys are going to be careful with these tires.
Forsyth very lucky.
Oh! Did you see that? AJ Hobson nearly clouded the barrier off of turn 3 and 4.
That's going to allow Jeff Haisong to get around him for the 6th position.
Here comes Drynan.
He thought about 3 wide there, I think, for a brief moment. But Hobson had the inside line there. Whoa, and then pushes up almost into Drynan off of turn 4. I'm really surprised that Craig Forsyth was able to hang on to that 5th position, as he nearly spun that thing around on the apron of 3 and 4, not once but twice when coming down pit lane. And Henry Bennett picked up a couple of spots. He picked up 2 spots there under green flag pit stops from 6th up to 4th.
Yeah, it's the Bennett. Bennett ever the man that's not necessarily pushing as hard as he possibly needs to push, but just managing his race. He knows he's got, again, another one of these drivers with a big head. Bennett's playing his cards a little bit closer to the chest. I think this is a move by Henry Bennett, maybe to play a little bit of mind games with Rick Ravon, because all of a sudden, if we get past this halfway 3/4 of a race mark, and Henry Bennett just turns that wicker up a little bit, Rick Ravon's got to sit around and go, what do I do? How do I find something? So just keep that in the back of your mind as well.
Saw Combs there coming down pit road in the 77. I believe he was a little bit off sequence with everybody, so I believe this is actually a scheduled 2nd green flag pit stop for him. Here's a battle going on. These drivers are a lap down, but this is still for a spot inside of the top 10. Gil Brooks making the pass on Gary Corley. Both those drivers were put a lap down to the race leader, Rick Ravon, and he's actually got Nick DeGroot and David Cook, that battle for 2nd just behind him.
Combs just exited the server. Combs is done.
Tough break there for Benjamin Combs. Like right now, he would be scheduled to finish this race in the 15th position as Nick DeGroot making the pass on Gary Corley. Big closing right there for David Cook, and he's going to try not only get to the inside of Corley, he tried to jump to the top side on Nick DeGroot, but you saw right there, fighting that race car, fighting the wheel, as that thing did not look steady going into turn 1.
Yeah, look after that thing, man. Look after it. Make sure you don't put it in the fans. Hang on to that fast repair. If you want to fight somebody later on in that race, you just want to have that safety blanket. Just chilling in the background, be able to come down pit road and grab that one off. It's been hard because ultimately to get the moves done for these guys, you got to send it very aggressively to the bottom of the racetrack. Naturally, the car's going to want to push itself all the way back up to the corner. So to get that move done, you are risking life, limb, and car, pushing all the way up to that outside wall. So the longer this race goes on under green flag scenario, the less moves I think are going to happen in the tail end of stints.
Gary Corley in the 7, driving to the inside off of turn 2, bringing his car to pit lane. Battle for second place, back on again. David Cook to the inside of Nick DeGroot. And can you believe it? No caution up to this point, and we are halfway through this race. This thing has flown by, but still a lot of late race drama could take place in the second half.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look at these guys right up at the point. These guys are still fighting it out. The battle itself, I mean, we can say that there's 3.5 seconds between our leader and our second place driver, but there's nothing between him, Nick DeGroot, and David Cook. There's nothing back to Henry Bennett. Henry Bennett's only a second adrift of these guys, and I mean, traffic is hugely playing its part. I think of these top 4, excluding Rick Ravon, Henry Bennett's probably got the best chance of getting some stuff done here, because Nick DeGroot and David Cook, they've been at it hammer and tong basically the entire race, and Bennett's just like, you guys keep going for it. I'm just gonna cruise on up here.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed about Henry Bennett late into the run before we had our first cycle green flag pit stops when we were on board with him, very little wheel motion. He seemed like he was very comfortable with where the car was at and really didn't put a whole lot of steering wheel into it, as if that thing was ill handling. So, keep an eye on him on a long run pace, as, to your point, he is starting to reel in these two drivers in this battle for second place.
Well, I'm just having a look at David Cook. I think David Cook's struggling, particularly through 1 and 2 at this point in time. That's where he's having the most issues. If he's going to be able to play himself back in, he's going to have to do everything. Nick DeGroot's into the lane. Here we go.
He's coming down. Nick DeGroot from the second
70
position is going to hit pit lane. See if he can make it on. Ooh, locked up that tire, as you alluded to, but I think he got it woed down in time and did make it onto pit lane.
So this splits it in half. This splits it in half. What he's trying to do is he's saying, right, there's 35 plus 35 to home from here. I'm going to split it in half. Those back few laps on these tire stints are so slow compared to the rest of the stint. David Cook has to push as hard as he possibly can for 1-2 laps, get into that booth, get out of there, go as hard as you possibly can. He's threatened by the undercut, and remember, if he's going to make this pass in the back end of these stints, that's where he's been struggling so much on 1 and 2.
Bear in mind, before Nick DeGroot dove onto pit road, it was 4.5 seconds up to race leader Rick Ravon, so we'll see if that gap gets closed up at all as Ravon continues to stay out. And it looks like, at least for the time being, everybody else on the lead lap, they are staying out for the time being. We'll see who the next one to dive onto pit road is going to be.
You know what? I just seen David Cook. David Cook is now buried in traffic. This is why Nick DeGroot came to pit lane, because the amount of time that David Cook is going to lose to that traffic far outweighs the benefit of running long here.
How difficult is it? I mean, obviously, the drivers, they do that at the road courses. They'll do that at the 1.5 miles. How difficult is it to kind of gauge at a short track of, if I come down pit road now, I may come out in a place with less traffic than I am right now?
There's different apps that do all that for you, Seth. So ultimately, I believe something called JRT Live Timing or does a very good job. It actually gives you a shadow car on a track map that'll tell you about the approximation of where you come up. If you've got a spotter, half of their job in a race like this is actually working out from the first stops where your track position is going to be when you cycle back around. You're looking for green flag cars, where they are in relation to you, so that way, when they cycle back around, you know exactly where you're going to be coming back out. Ultimately, the best strategy in one of these places is, even if you don't know where you're going to come out, if you have an understanding of where you are in relative space when you initially come down a pit road. For example, Nick DeGroot pits because he knows he's going to come in behind traffic. Have a look at this! David Cook comes out behind traffic! How crucial is that going to be?
That's going to be huge, and that's actually going to bring Nick DeGroot right to his back bumper. Oh, we got a car
somebody
around.
In the barriers.
I believe that might have been Jeff Heist's song.
Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure it was, because it was the same battle that David Cook initially pitted just after he got past those guys.
Henry Bennett had to make his way around the outside of that spun out 18 car as he was coming pit road that time. Gale Brooks coming down pit road as well. So it's going to turn the race lead back over to Rick Ravon, and if my calculations are correct, the gap did get closed up between himself and Nick DeGroot. I think it's now going to be about maybe 3 seconds between the two. Remember, it was about 4.5 seconds before DeGroot dove onto pit road.
Yeah, so the big factor under that pit stops was Nick DeGroot pitting the instant he came up on traffic, and remember, he came out and it looks like he cleared traffic the instant that he came back out as well. That's huge, because look at the margin that's opened up between him and David Cook. David Cook had to fight through traffic. Undercut plays a little bit of a factor in there as well, but DeGroot was looking for that clear track position, so he wasn't getting that aero wake on the front wing. His tires could act as they normally possibly could have done. I think DeGroot's just played a masterstroke, to be perfectly honest with you, Seth. I think David Cook was too busy driving to a number that he didn't recognize the traffic scenario that just played it out, and Nick DeGroot's just going, you know what, I'm going to use my head here.
Granted, we had 34 drivers in last year's Iowa race, but 21 drivers finished on the lead lap in that one. We are at 60 laps to go here at Iowa, and out of a 16-car field, there's only 5 drivers right now on the same lap as race leader Rick Ravon.
Yeah, but that'll be difference in cautions. We haven't had a single caution. Green flag running at a short track, you're going to put a lot of cars a lap down. That's just the nature of the beast. That's how it all runs. And look at the structure of the track right now. Rick Ravon's got 1 car in front of him. Big hole all the way through to the 5th place driver is the next guy out on track. Just in behind him, Nick DeGroot, big gap through to the lap car that most recently Rick Ravon has passed. It's all about track timings, where you come out, where your traffic management is, how you look after your tires when you're trying to get through that traffic. Right now, Rick Ravon's struggling. This whole stint is going to play so hardcore back into Nick DeGroot's hands.
Great point you made there about the fact we haven't been on the caution today, and last year's Iowa race saw the caution waved for 11 times. You know, obviously we've got a couple more races before we crown a champion. We've got next week at Long Beach, we go to Texas, and then we have pole day qualifying, of course, the main event, Indy 500 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to close out the season. But it's not too early to take a look at the future schedule in the upcoming 5th season, and got a couple of tracks that are going to be making their debut on the schedule. Richmond's going to be on the schedule. Kansas. How about the road course of Red Bull Ring? That's going to be on there, as well as Nashville. So some new tracks for these drivers to test out in the upcoming schedule, Season 5.
And ultimately, Red Bull Ring's just a great circuit for overtaking. I mean, you really can push the car. It's a really nice flowing circuit. And I mean, if you haven't been there, Seth, if you haven't witnessed the joys of Formula One at Red Bull Ring, this is going to be another one of those phenomenal races. Probably my highlight of the season for next season. It's coming 5th round dead, 6th round dead. I can't count. It's early in the morning over here.
I can only tell you, I looked up the Wikipedia page of the track, tried to pronounce what the track originally was called, and just thank my lucky stars they call it Red Bull Ring now.
Maybe we should do a Formula One style paint week for that one, see if we can't get a few cars out here, because I mean, you know, it would be a really, really good idea for the league to do something like that. Look, I mean, you know, we're going to have, I think, to be perfectly honest with you, it looks like a cracker season. Pocono is going to be another fantastic race. Iowa's making a return. Kansas. I love the Milwaukee Mile. It's just such a difficult track that really asks a lot of these drivers. So, look, there is a lot of really good opportunities for some great racing next season as well.
I love the fact, too, we just keep up the tradition of opening up the season at a 2-mile speedway/super speedway. It's been Michigan in the past, it was Auto Club this season, and it's going to be Auto Club again next year.
Yeah, and it's going to be a full-length race to open up the season as well. And the best part about full-length races is, especially as an opening, there's 2 ways that those sort of races can go. They can either be really, really frustrating, new guys to the league, try and settle themselves in, really work things out, find their running order. Alternatively, they're a great opportunity for the guys to just sort of take a step back a little bit, get their season underway on a strong foot, and basically, instead of just racing people really, really hard from the get-go, try and work out where you are in the field, try and work out, let some people go, build some relationships, and full-length races do a great job of that. Not only that, we're going to have another full-length race back at Michigan partway through the season, 2 weeks after the Red Bull Ring as well. That's going to make for an absolute cracker. I'm a big fan of full-length races, Seth.
We ended up mentioning about the fact that the top 3 in the point standings coming into this one were all separated by I believe it was 16 points is I think what I said. I'll double check on that here real quick. Yes, indeed, 16 points separating those three. Something I'm noticing here is you've got all three of them up inside of the top four, but based off the way that the IndyCar points work out, Rick Ravon is actually going to be able to open up a little bit more daylight if he closes out the deal here tonight, because the race winner can get a maximum of 55 points. Second place only pays out at the maximum 43 points. That's 12 points right there that Rick Ravon would gain over Nick DeGroot if they finish where they're currently at.
Yeah, and that's a huge margin. I mean, especially the season, like we talked about it, drawing to a close. Rick Ravon's had it. Oh, he made contact! Ravon made contact with the lap car there.
I believe
it's Todd
Schneider in the 86. Was multiple laps down in the 13th position.
That all of a sudden just throws a spanner in the works. You want to know the best part about that, Seth? We are a pit window from home, just on it. So if Ravon's got a couple laps here to figure the car out, decide whether or not he's struggling, and go, yes, I need to come down pit road, we'll just get that fixed and get back out there.
And also the good news for him as well is these drivers do have a faster pair to fall back on, so if he did get some damage and didn't want to spend the time repairing it, he could use that faster pair at that point in time for the final run to the checkered flag. We've only had two drivers that are out there running right now actually use their faster pair, and that would be Gary Corley and Eric Peterson. So a lot of drivers, if they've gotten up, maybe brushed the wall on this run, made contact as just happened there with Rick Ravon with another car, they can maybe use that faster pair for the final run.
Well, I'm surprised Craig Forsyth actually isn't on that list, because that contact he made with the barriers on the way into pit lane in the early running was actually quite heavy. So he must have just tagged the front wing with that one, and he's been able to shake it off with a nose cone replacement, so at least that's been lucky for him. Race has started to really settle itself down at this point in time. I can actually see Nick DeGroot's falling back by about 0.2, 0.3 of a second per lap. He's actually starting to fall into David Cook's clutches. Now, this is the bad part about pitting early. You do get the undercut. You do get an advantage early on in the stint, and then your tires start to fall away, and he's now in that mindset. But ultimately, he is probably 2 or 3 laps from making his final stop.
Exactly. So I guess if you are able to be ahead of the 24 before you have to duck onto pit road, mission successful at least for the time being of keeping the 24 in your rearview mirror, and then you're probably just going to have to do it all over again coming to the checkered.
Yeah, look, I mean, mission accomplished, and we've seen how difficult it is, like I was talking about, to make overtakes late in the run as well. So track position is what it's all about, and that's what he's going to do with his pit lane strategy. Additionally, he's putting a lot of pressure on the Norton Charger, I believe it. No, it's the Gould Charger and the Norton, and I forget the nickname that these drivers give their cars from David Cook, but it's a great initiative by those guys. He's putting a lot of pressure on that right front tire of David Cook. So David Cook is going to push, because David needs to get this move done now so that he can start to burn away from Nick DeGroot. Because if Nick DeGroot stops, and Nick DeGroot's still ahead, I think Nick DeGroot gets this second place finish.
AJ Hobson, 63 on pit road. So the final cycle of green flag pit stops has begun with the 63 starting it off. Nick DeGroot, moments away, we do believe, from coming down for his final pit stop of the day. 7 seconds behind Rick Ravon. This battle for second place is currently going on.
Here it comes to the outside. David Cook, I think this is a really smart move. Positioning himself to the outside. And DeGroot immediately jumps on the radio and says, I'm pitting.
I wondered as soon as the 24 peeked to his outside if that was DeGroot throwing up his hands and saying, all right, that's it, I'm coming down this time.
So the smart move from Nick DeGroot there is he was going to be momentum compromised heading down the back straight. So instead of having to do a lap whereby he's momentum compromised because he had to take the lower line, come to pit road. You're not momentum compromised then.
Eric Peterson was just ahead of him. Jimmy Drynan just behind him as they come down for their final pit stop of the day. And now David Cook, 7.5 seconds behind Rick Ravon. We'll see if at any point he decides to undercut his teammate here and cut into that race lead. Rick Ravon dealing with some traffic here. He's the last couple of laps had the 18 of Jeff Hysong ahead of him, and he hasn't really been able to get around it.
He needs to come. He cannot. He's been following Jeff Hysong for such a long period of time. He needs to come to pit road. Just get rid of Hysong off of that nose cone of your car, Rick. Just get into pit road, get your stop out of the way, release yourself from that traffic, go back out there with thresher tires and make something out of it.
Now, I know it's very difficult to try to tell a driver to kind of rein it back in, but if you've got over 7 seconds back to your nearest competitor and you're at a track like Iowa, a short track, just how conservative are you going to be coming down pit road to make sure that thing doesn't step out from underneath you and you get that thing lowered down to pit road speed? Because the last thing you want to do is dominate this race and throw it away in the final 30 laps. Caution! Todd Schneider has gone around the back straightaway, and this changes up everything as we only had 2 drivers on the lead lap at the time this caution flew.
No. You know what? Nick de Groot can't get 2 laps back. Nick de Groot is going to finish this race 1 lap down. You know who has managed to keep himself at the 1 lap down marker is Henry Bennett. No, Henry Bennett's got 2 laps down as well.
He's 2 laps down as well. The only 2 drivers 1 lap down right now are Gale Brooks and Jeff Hysong.
Oh, no. That is not what you wanted. Oh, my word.
This was on fresh tires for Todd Schneider. He had just come off of pit road.
Old
and the
tires.
thing stepped out from underneath him off of turn 2.
There is a little bump in the pit lane exit. Oh, and he just barely avoids most of the field. I think Gale Brooks collected him, but that was about it.
He did indeed. I mentioned Gale Brooks was running in the 3rd position at the time that caution came out, but definitely some contact and damage sustained by the 71. I'll tell you who was very close to being T-boned and all of that as well was the 89 of Nick de Groot.
My word. Well, that just throws a spanner in the works, and that means that it's going to be Rick Ravon and David Cook coming to pit road. The only 2 cars that can contest them to the end of this race are Gale Brooks and Jeff Hysong. It's over, Seth. It is absolutely well and truly overdone and signed, sealed, and delivered. The only 2 cars that can compete for this win are David Cook and Rick Ravon in my mind.
Well, let's also bear in mind that Jeff Hysong, we were looking at Rick Ravon not too long ago, and Rick Ravon was having some difficulty getting around Jeff Hysong. And I don't know if that was necessarily that he was maybe just kind of hanging back and willing not to be battling with the 18 and tear up his stuff, or if the fact that the 18 was really able to hold him off on the speed he had. If that's the case, Hysong may still have something to say about this in the closing stages.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, what I think it is the fact that Jeff Hysong had the lead on him and the aero wake. They were running similar sort of speed. I'd say Ravon was quicker, but the aero wake that Rick Ravon was dealing with was the key factor there. Now, the one benefit for Jeff Hysong here is that he did get the lucky dog. He did get the wave around such that he can pit. So he's now down here. He's on pit road. He's going to get a fresh set of tires, which means he will have a shot. So effectively, we're going to be back to a 3-horse race in the Dark Horse Racing Series.
Let's also bear in mind here as well, this caution comes out. We were just under 30 laps to go. We will be getting back green with a good handful of laps still left to be run. Nick de Groot, Craig Forsyth, Henry Bennett, those guys are going to be battling for that free pass position should we get another yellow flag. That's going to be a huge battle to follow between the 89 and the 007.
Yeah, it's going to be critical because look at it this way. It's so difficult to really call at this point in time because, you've also got Craig for 89, 27, 007, 3 cars that can fight for a lucky dog position. They're relying on a caution to come out. But at the same time, this is Nick de Groot and Henry Bennett squabbling over the pieces of a minor championship fight as well. This is crucial for them. Whoever can beat the other one out of this traffic scenario is going to pick up points on their nearest rival, and that's a critical factor as well. Yes, the lucky dog is going to be a crucial thing, but that relies on there being a caution. You still want to be ahead of these other guys. You want to get that track position as best as you possibly can, just purely see put points over them.
Well, we still have a couple of laps to be run here under pacing. We will be getting the green flag nearing 20 laps to go. While we've got the opportunity under pacing, give a shout out to our sponsor of our starting grid and our finishing results, lmcgear.com, your one-stop shop for all your motorcycle camping and backpacking needs. Specializing in camping gear that's ultra lightweight and compact, making it perfect for carrying on your motorcycle or in a backpack. And they also carry all the motorcycle accessories you need to get your gear safely down the road. Check out lightweight motorcycle camping gear.com today. No surprise, Todd Schneider back in the garage area, so 2 drivers will not reach the conclusion of this race. Benjamin Combs went back to the garage
3.
about 60 laps ago, and yes, correct, we could add Nicholas Winook to that list as well, as he has spent the last 100-plus laps sitting on pit lane. So 13 drivers will still be running. Only 3 on the lead lap at this point in time, and only one of those 3 has been to victory lane this season. Cook and Heistong, they're still looking for their first wins of the season. Matter of fact, I believe for both of them, they're looking for their first win of their Dark Horse Racing Series career.
Yeah, because we got to remember David Cook's pretty fresh this series. He's coming in here to help his teammate in Rick Ravon. He's going to do absolutely everything he possibly can to help Rick Ravon, but at the same time, he does want to put his stamp down. He'll be here, I'm sure, for the next season of Dark Horse Racing Series, so that's going to be a huge factor. And yeah, look, I mean, Haisong has got an opportunity here. He's going to be starting at the tail end of the field. He's got to turn and burn his way through this traffic, but he will have a tire advantage to be able to do so.
Jeff Heisong finished 10th here at Iowa last season. As we are back underway, the top 2 are gone. Now it's a mano-a-mano battle, and you gotta wonder, I mean, obviously David Cook knows the situation. He knows Rick Ravon's trying to battle for the championship, but still, the competitor inside of him says, hey, you'd be fine if you finish in 2nd place. You're still gonna finish ahead of your competition. I want this checkered flag.
Yeah, but you don't want to see teammates come together. I mean, flashback in my mind is back to Nico Rosberg versus Lewis Hamilton at Catalunya a few years ago in Formula One. Those guys were fighting for a championship at this stage. This is a different series of events. Matt Wagner, just out in YouTube chat, by the way, has just said, Jeff Heisong, you gotta send it, baby. Wagner wants to see Jeff win.
Here's a look at the wad of cars back behind those top 2. Jim Herrick, there's Nick DeGroot in the 89. He right now, I believe, is the 2nd car 1 lap down. Gail Brooks holds the lucky dog spot about 7-8 car lengths ahead of him. You've got different drivers on different laps, so there's some battling for position going on here, but not a whole lot as you've got drivers 1, 2, and 3 laps down, all in this group.
So I think Gail Brooks
3 wide! Car in the wall, Gary Corley bouncing off of the 63 of Jeff Heisong. They keep it together, though.
So I think what's actually happened here, and Gail Brooks should have accepted a waiver around there, just to get himself back on the lead lap. I think Gail Brooks has come down and taken tires and stayed 1 lap down. And the reason is he may have a teammate sitting there whispering in his ear saying, can you trap these guys 1 lap down? You will be stuck and you will get that lucky dog at all available opportunities, which means that nobody else will be able to take it. Nobody else will be able to get that lap back. You are effectively locking yourself into P4, but you're letting everyone else stay a lap down. That is some heads-up racing from Gail Brooks if he's doing it for a teammate.
I'm not so certain he didn't have to come down pit route of necessity, though, because remember, he was the one that made contact with Todd Schneider off of turn 2, so there would have been some pretty extensive damage on that left front wing.
Yeah, maybe you are right. That could be correct. Has he burned his fast repair ups there?
He has not, amazingly enough. I actually looked to see about that. Thought probably with the hit he took that he would have used the fast repair at that point in time, but no, he did not. And that car still looks actually pretty speedy, been able to keep Nick DeGroot at bay.
Well, so the thing is, it did only make contact at the left front corner. I think he may have gotten away with just wing damage. So he had to come down for a nose cone replacement is about my only thoughts.
That would probably make sense. And yeah, and obviously not able to take the wave around with coming down pit road, but currently if we were to get a caution, it's not looking very likely as we're nearing 10 laps to go, but if a caution were to come out, he would be the first car 1 lap down, 1 second in hand, back to Nick DeGroot. But looking at the lap times right now, DeGroot is coming in a hurry. That last time by, he was about a 1/10.5 quicker, and he has cleared traffic now. He has just the 71 ahead of him to deal with.
Yeah, so that's an impressive drive from Nick DeGroot, especially on. Well, no, he does have fresher tires. They're not burned up, these tires, but they were only just taken a couple laps before that last caution. So they're going to be reasonably fresh from Nick DeGroot. But this is a brand spanking new set from Gail Brooks, and he's had clear air in front of him. But DeGroot is just so much faster. He wants it too. Nick DeGroot does.
Yeah, every position means that you're going to at least gain some points on Rick Ravon than where you're currently sitting. You've got Nick DeGroot trying to get the 4th position away from Gail Brooks, and just a little further back, there's Henry Bennett gunning for Craig Forsyth. That is for the 6th position. These guys realize that 1 position ahead of them, they need to get that here in these final 8 laps. It could be crucial by the time we get to Indianapolis if Rick Ravon closes out the deal and takes yet another checkered flag this season.
And crucially for Henry Bennett, he was one of the last guys to come down pit road. I think he was actually on pit road when the caution flag came out. So he did get his lap back with effectively green tires. But yeah, so he's got one of the freshest sets in the field. He just hasn't been able to turn and burn like everyone else.
So far this season, Robert Maleska III has 4 wins. Henry Bennett has the most with 5. And third on that list would be Rick Ravon with 3. He can tie Maleska, the defending champion, and wins this season if he's able to keep David Cook in his rearview mirror. And I'm actually noticing that Cook's falling off a little bit. I wonder if maybe he experimented a little too much trying to find a way around. Rick Ravon might have used up his stuff here in the final 5 laps.
Well, Rick Ravon's just got clean air. I mean, David Cook spent the whole race attached to Nick de Groot's rear bumpers, so he knows what it's like to run in the aero wash, and he will know how to manipulate that as best as possible. You wouldn't be at the point of this field, though, if you weren't a driver capable of doing such things. But at the end of the day, this is a teammate fight. Look, I'm going to be honest. Rick Ravon strikes me as the kind of guy who would... He's got a big head, he's got a big heart in him, and he would have said to David Cook, look, don't race me too closely, but race me. I want to see what you got.
I remember last season, one thing I was always pointing out about Robert Maleska III was his ability to be able to win at tracks of different lengths and different configurations. Look at the places Rick Ravon's been able to win at this season so far. Phoenix last week, the Milwaukee Mile, and Pocono, the 2.5-mile triangular speedway. He's yet to win at a road course. He'll have a shot at that next week, the final road course stop at Long Beach, but looking for his second short track win on the season. White flag will be displayed this time, but Cook says,
Cook's
not
close.
so fast, buddy. He's there. He's within striking distance. What does he do on this final lap?
He's got to have a crack. Go, David. Go. Have a crack at it, buddy. Don't just let him have it.
See if he
He's too far back.
No, he's too far back to make a move. You're right. Rick
Oh,
Ravon.
maybe.
Wait a minute. Woo! Made it close. Half a car length. A 500th of a second between those two coming to the start-finish line. But Rick Ravon, win number 4 on the season. The points leader will continue to grow his points lead heading into Long Beach next week.
Yeah, what a phenomenal finish from Rick. This is what his season has been all about. When faced with adversity, the instant that he went down in the points championship, things just did not go his way. He didn't have a strong opening end of the season, and then all of a sudden he just kept building and building and building, week in and week out. And I think a large part of the reason that he's had a lot of success is he's had David Cook alongside of him. David Cook's only joined the season in recent weeks, but David Cook, I think, has been there right the way through to sit down, to help Rick Ravon. They compare data, they compare notes, they look at how they can win at these sorts of tracks, and look at them taking the formation laps around in celebration. This is a phenomenal drive from both of them. Yeah, pit strategy, yeah, cautions came at the right time, but ultimately these guys still would have been first and third, I think, if Nick de Groot was still up here. So that's just a great drive from both of them.
Absolutely. And I mean, Rick Ravon's been very consistent this year, but what a time to hit a hot streak of trips to victory lane. Back-to-back victories and 3 wins in the last 4 weeks for the 2-car.
Yeah, and I mean, he is just, look, at this point, if he was able to run away with the championship, you can say that he put his run together at all the right times. You know, there was nothing, you cannot take anything away from Rick Ravon. When he hasn't been at the point, he's still had a reasonable, a consistent season. It hasn't been the best season ever. He's had weeks off with COVID, and he's still here. He's still in contention, and he's still showing us how it's done week in and week out. If he wins this series after dealing with COVID, I think he can say that he is definitely the deserved champion.
Parks his machine on the start-finish line here on the Iowa Speedway front straightaway and look at the finishing results. Obviously, as you mentioned, the spanner in the works was that caution coming out with about 30 laps to go. Only 3 drivers, correction, on the lead lap. Haisung bringing it home in the podium. Gale Brooks will finish the first car 1 lap down. Nick de Groot still able to salvage a 5th. Henry Bennett able to salvage a 7th, but with Rick Ravon winning here today, they will lose more points on the 2 machine heading into next week. But bear in mind, Henry Bennett's been very good at the road courses, so Long Beach might be a place for him to mount a comeback. Nick de Groot, we know, is very good at Indianapolis, so don't count your chickens yet, folks. This points battle into the finale still may be closer than you think. Also good runs here for drivers like Craig Forsyth bringing it home 6th. Drynan, Hobson, Herrick, they're going to finish up inside the top 10. And then you go down here, these other drivers, a lot of these guys finishing multiple laps down because of either getting up into the wall and getting some damage, no caution to save them, or the biggest problem here today for most guys, pit road.
Yeah, look, I mean, when you look at the end results of things, the best drivers definitely won. The best drivers were certainly up there, but I think Nick de Groot will sit there and go what could have been, and I think it's been that case right throughout the season. It's been a season whereby cautions have flown at inopportune times within pretty much every single race. You can sit down and say, hey, a caution's flown in the middle of a green flag stop run right here. Just about every time right throughout the season. It's been one of those seasons, it's been a little bit like that, and it's been unfortunate because we've lost multiple drivers throughout the championship running just purely because of how things played out. Then you also have the coming together of Robert Maleska and Henry Bennett back at Pocono that took them effectively out of the equation and left them running 14th, 15th. They had a lot of work to do to try and regain some points for those guys there, and they did the best that they possibly could. I think in terms of things, Rick Ravon's been incredibly lucky, but he's also created his own luck as well.
Definitely has. Well, next week, it's going to be the final road course. It's also going to be the final track to make its debut on the schedule at Long Beach. But let's talk to some of our podium finishers here tonight from Iowa Speedway. And let's kick things off with Twisted Trojan Motorsports' highest finishing driver here tonight. That's the 18 of Jeff Hysong. Hey, Jeff, Scott, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I do. How you doing?
Doing good, man. What a crazy race here today. Long green flag racing, pit road coming into play, but then that late race caution comes out at the end. You're the first car one lap down, and because of that caution, last car to finish on the lead lap and pick up a podium. I mean, how are you feeling? And I mean, how exhausted are you? Because it looked like everybody out there was dealing with some somewhat ill-handling race cars, especially towards the end of those runs.
Yeah, I decided to run the top because of that, and it helped out a little bit, but I had a little bit of a mess coming to pit road under green, and that just threw everything away, it seemed. And then I found some pace and race Rick like my life depended on it, and got as lucky as I could get, honestly.
Look, I mean, in terms of things, Jeff, it's been a long trip to get actually back here and into the podium places. I mean, talk about it. It's been a rough fight throughout the mid pack, the bulk of the way throughout the season. What's it been like racing down there? It looks like it's difficult. It looks like it's very, very difficult because you've got so many cars so close together.
Yeah, you get all those cars close together, and I mean, you got 2-3 wide, and the dirty air starts becoming a big thing further and further you go throughout the pack. So, I mean, you just kind of try and keep it straight and see what you can do later in the run.
I mean, Jeff, obviously, we're coming down to the end of the season. We know that, there's a battle for the championship going on, but there's other drivers like yourself that are also battling to finish the best that you possibly can here in the season standings. I mean, we got Long Beach coming up next week, a track that you guys haven't run under the Dark Horse banner yet. I mean, are you looking forward to that road course? Is there some apprehension there? I mean, where do you stand as far as that track?
I love the track because it is my home track, but a little apprehension. I'm not sure how I'll fare. We'll see what happens when the setup comes out, but excited and nervous at the same time.
Well, Jeff, congratulations on a great performance here tonight. P3 at the short track of Iowa. We're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Thanks to FRN and ESTV, and big thanks to the family. Big shout-out to them. Love you guys, and that's about it. Thank you guys for doing such a great job.
It's Jeff Hysong, your third place finisher here tonight at the Iowa Speedway. Once again, congratulations, Jeff, on a good performance here tonight.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
And now it's time to talk to the Patriot Speed teammates. Let's kick things off with tonight's runner-up. Almost got his teammate Rick Ravon at the start-finish line, but let's talk with David Cook. Hey, David, Scott, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey, guys, I got you.
Oh, man, I mean, we were speculating up here in the booth. We know you're hungry for that first victory on the season. At the same time, trying to help your teammate be able to win this championship. But, man, it's a short track. You were right there within striking distance. You made the move on him a couple of times, especially right there on a turn 4 to the start-finish line. It looked like you were trying to set him up. What little more did you need to be able to edge him out?
Oh, I know it. You know what, guys? Going into turn 1 there, I went a little bit too high, and I caught those bumps, and I lost all the momentum I was going to carry into 3. But I just ran it super high going through 3 and 4, and I gave it my last little shot to the line, and he just pit me. But I'll tell you what, if any guy's going to beat you, you want it to be Rick Raven.
Look, I mean, it was a tough race right throughout the night. I mean, you and Nick DeGroot went head to head. He got the upper hand on you coming into traffic, and you just stuck to your guns in terms of that first round of green flag pit stops. I mean, how difficult was it to just say, I've got to stick this out, I've got to hang with the traffic, this is going to play back into my hands later on?
Oh, just just like anything, man. You start second guessing yourself, and do I need to change my plan and stuff like that? But you just got to keep your head down, stick to the plan, and everything works out.
Obviously, we saw here tonight drivers that finished up at the front had fast race cars, but also drivers that were able to execute on pit road. Twice you guys had to hit pit lane under green flag conditions. How difficult was it getting onto pit lane for you? Because we saw a lot of drivers either overshoot pit road, they spin coming onto pit road. A couple of drivers got busted for speeding.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but I think it was my last pit stop. I almost overshot it, and I thought I was going to tag the wall, and it just came back to me at the right point there. That is one scary pit lane to be dealing with, but it worked out just okay.
Obviously, it's a big question, David. We've seen you've had the speed to be up there at the front week after week after week. We've got a road course coming up at Long Beach. We've got 1.5 miles at Texas Motor Speedway. We've, of course, got the season finale at the big one, the Indianapolis 500. Do we see this 24 in victory lane before season's end?
You know what? I hope so. I love road racing. That's actually basically what I do all the time. The ovals, I'm still getting used to them, so I'm happy with my speed with the ovals, but I got a little bit of work to do. So we'll see what happens, man. Long Beach is a good one for me, and yeah, I don't know. We'll see. These guys are so fast, probably some of the fastest drivers I've ever come across, and week in, week out, it is tough. So it's exciting. DeGroot and I, what a battle! He is such an awesome driver, and I'm just having so much fun.
Well, David picks up his. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
I was just gonna say, you've got. Are you saying that this is you're starting to get into ovals, and you're this far up in a league of this level?
Yeah, I mean, I used to do some Xfinity and stuff on the ovals way back when, but
You're kidding me.
No, I mean, to be serious with ovals though, no. I mean, this is probably the first time I've ever gotten really serious with the oval.
That's a serious talent, man. I just wanted to show my level of respect for that. That is a serious talent, David. Great job.
Oh, well,
brother.
thank you. Yeah, Rick Raven, guys, honestly, wow, what a driver. He's such an awesome guy, and I really appreciate him and I hooking up together to do this team, and it's working out beautifully. We've got great chemistry on the racetrack, and man, I don't know. Thank you to you guys so much for the broadcast. You guys are awesome, some of the best in the business that I've ever heard for sure. And man, I can't wait till next week.
That's David Cook. It's his third top 5 on the season. It's his second podium finish on the year as well. As he brings home P2 here tonight at the Iowa Speedway. Once again, congratulations, David, and best of luck when we get to that road course next week at Long Beach.
Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Let's go down to
Seth.
victory lane. No, you're perfectly fine, man.
I had to cut you off because that is you're not an iRacer, so you don't understand that level. The disciplines are actually dramatically different in the driving style. You can be a road racer and transfer some of those skills, but the way that you have to manage tires and drive the cars is actually completely different, and it takes a real. It's why you see in terms of real level IndyCar drivers, you see like guys like Romain Grosjean, Scott McLaughlin, all of these road racers that are transitioning into an IndyCar do so well, and then you go to the ovals and they just struggle. Because it's so different. Yeah.
I don't want to keep Rick waiting, but I do have to ask you this just to kind of build off of that then, because, short track here tonight, this was Cook's best finish of the season so far in the 5 starts he's made. Is there anything from road course racing you can translate over to this track in particular with short track racing?
Yes, there is. Short track racing definitely lends itself more towards it. Milwaukee's another one of those tracks that's very, very good. Michigan is great for the road races because of a lot of those skills. Road racing is a lot about trail braking and how you position the weight of the car at your turn-in point, and then how you pick up the throttle on the exit. With ovals, it's a lot more bailing out of the throttle, allowing the car to rotate. You've got to feel out the car's rotation and then get back into the throttle a lot smoother and pick it up. So it's not about transitioning the weight to the front wheels, get the car to the turn whilst you're still trailing a little bit of brake to keep the weight over the nose, but it's about how balanced the car feels and how to look after that right front. It's a completely different skill set.
Well, let's see if we can now go down to victory lane For the second time in 2 weeks, it's Rick Ravon waving the checkered flag. Hey Rick, Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I think he's still celebrating.
He is.
I got champagne all over me.
Well, I mentioned it, Rick. Obviously, you've been very consistent this year, but what a time to get hot in terms of finding victory lane. Back-to-back victories, 3 trips to victory lane in the last 4 weeks, and only a handful of races left until we end up crowning the eventual champion. I mean, right now, seems like everything is pointing in the direction of this 2-car.
Well, you mentioned a few weeks ago, something about, you asked me about momentum and how important it was, and I said I feel like we have the momentum on our side right now, and I look back and think about Gateway again. I can't get that off my mind. If only I didn't get COVID, and who knows? I mean, I could have been. Maybe I would have wrecked, but if I did well, that would have just been more points. But I don't even know what to say. I'm so excited. I can't believe, Nick DeGroot, boy. We had a nice little battle there, and then I got around, and he started. I don't know if maybe he was conserving fuel, but I started pulling away, and Bennett, I don't know what happened to Bennett. He just, he was a rocket in qualifying, but then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened to him. He was a rocket in practice. I shouldn't say that. He didn't actually qualify too well. But he put up a good number in his qualifying trim during practice. I was like, oh boy, well, Bennett will probably be beyond the pole, and he wasn't. And I couldn't believe it. But, we were able to work our way up to, pretty early and get up there with the Groot. And then, the Gould Charge just took off. I couldn't believe it. And here comes, my teammate, obviously, me and Dave Cook. He's such a great teammate. What a great guy. Man, I love that guy. We were working together, obviously, as a team. And I just can't believe it. A 1-2, this is like a dream. I can't believe it.
I mean, Rick, we're talking. I can still see you out in the car just turning laps. I mean, this is just a celebration from you at this point. This is the pure joy of driving, isn't it? You're literally just out there, and the race is now over, but you're just enjoying the car and you're just enjoying the moment. And racing is so much about that. In the tail end of the race, I'm sure you and David would have talked about it. It's impossible not to talk about it because it's so crucial to a championship fight. What was the language like going between you and David at the end of the race? Was there a yes, you can race me moment? Was there a no, you can't race me moment? Because this is important to a championship hunt.
Well, yeah. I mean, he knows that I'm in contention for the championship. And I told him, because he's fast, I says, dude, if you want to come around me, if you've got what it takes, just come around me, man. We'll fight it out. He was like, no, I'm just going to hang out back here a little bit, and just save my tires. You do your thing. And then, all of a sudden there he was on the last lap and down to the inside he goes. And I'm like, wow, okay. Wow. I'm glad I was able to hang on, though.
He actually said to us he made a mistake through 1 and 2 on that last lap and caught the bumps, and that's I think you take that away. I think he had you, which is that's so good to see as well.
Yeah, well, it's like a Roger Penske type deal. I know in Formula One they give orders, but our team is a lot like Roger would run his team and just say, you guys go for it. You guys are in contention for one of you's in contention for the championship, but the other guy, look, may the best man win, and that's just the way it is. With our team.
Obviously, we talked about it coming into Iowa tonight, the last short track stop on the season. A lot of different ways that this track can get you. Even as the race leader, there's some places where you can run into trouble, albeit if you're running in traffic. Pit road bit a couple of people here tonight. I mean, what was the biggest apprehension you had coming in tonight and the thing that you absolutely felt you had to execute on?
Well, yes, you're right. Let's talk about the track. That's good because, Iowa obviously is such a tight track. It's so small. It's a bull ring, and I was afraid we were going to have more yellows because the track is, you could basically for the first several laps put your foot to the floor, and I thought that we would probably have some yellows, but we didn't. And I got to tell you, man, this field they just did such a great job. Even though I had a little doubt, like we might get some yellows, and we didn't. It's just amazing. Dark Horse, man, they just got the great guys in this field, and like I said, I was afraid that, because it was so tight and on fresh tires, you were able to really you could stick the bottom and there was no aero push. The aero push kicked in around, I don't know, 12, 15 laps. Then you started getting a little, but yeah, I was just afraid that I would get caught up in something. I said a little prayer. I said, please, dear Lord, please just let me finish this race. Please just let me finish. Whatever happens, please, don't let me wreck or get taken out or something. And I was just, hey, look, we got to the finish and we got there in first place. It just doesn't get any better than that, man. I'm so happy.
Well, not only picking up your 4th win of the season, going to extend that points lead heading into Long Beach next week as well. So look to preserve that. Of course, we got tracks like Texas and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway coming up to finish out the season. So obviously, I would assume at this point in time, it's all about preservation. I'm certain you wouldn't mind going to victory lane a time or two before we get that season finale checkered flag. But Rick, a great run for you again here tonight. As mentioned, momentum definitely on your side. So congratulations. We're now going to turn the mic over to you for some victory lane. Thank you, sponsors and shoutouts.
Yeah, well, first I just want to mention Joe Frazier. Yes, Smoking Joe. He used to train me in Philadelphia, and he always used to tell me, during a fight, I would say, well, what should I do now? I'm sure we got a good lead, and he'd say, just go with what got you here. Don't change a thing. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm not going to change anything. I'm not going to go into conservation mode. I'm just going to do whatever it is that I've been doing that got me to this point. I think I would be foolish to do anything differently because it's been successful. So why would I want to change it? But yeah, shout outs. I want to shout out to everybody in the field. Just such a great job. One yellow flag at Iowa. One yellow flag at Iowa. Are you kidding me? What a field, man. All these guys.
There was 11 last season, Rick. There was 11 last season.
That's unbelievable. Wow. I don't know what to say about that. I'm so proud of these guys. They all did a great job. And I also wanted to shout out to Jeff Heisong, who I think he was running 6th and fighting for his lap, and I couldn't get around him, and he just did a fantastic job. So great job there, Jeff. It was fun racing with you. I caught you a couple times, but you held me back there. Just a fantastic job. Thanks to FRN. You guys, Scott and Seth, I can't wait to watch this race. You guys you're so entertaining and you're so knowledgeable. I love what you guys do up in the booth. Shout out to, Charles Teed and Eric Peterson, for putting this show on, and just everybody out there. I don't know what to say, man. All the people watching here on FRN, and everybody who supports me on Facebook, thank you so much. Thanks to my wife, who was up there watching and cheering me on. I sit down here in my man cave, and right above me, literally right above me, is the living room, and I can hear her up there going, "Go baby, go! Go baby, go!" And my daughter's up there too. Thanks, Mila, for your support. I love you so much, and thanks to the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. I'm just, what a day! What a day! What a race!
What a day indeed. Rick Ravon, your winner here tonight at the Iowa Speedway. Win number 4 on the year. Continues to lead those points into Long Beach next week. Best of luck there, Rick. Enjoy this victory.
Oh, thanks so much. I will. It's champagne tonight. Looking forward to Long Beach. See you guys there.
And so with our final short track stop on the season in the books, we now look ahead to next week, final road course stop on the season. And I was just looking back and noticed the fact that Henry Bennett, 2 of his 5 victories this season came at the road courses, Canadian Tire and Road America earlier on this year. You gotta think that next week at Long Beach, he's got that track circled as a place to mount at least a little bit of a comeback, lose or gain some of the points he lost here today to keep that championship battle hot and heavy when we get to Indy.
Yeah, look, I mean, he'll have a crack. I think I'm going to take Rick's words tonight about the remainder of the season with a pinch of salt, because ultimately, yes, you don't want to change anything up, because ultimately, as soon as you start driving the car differently, you aren't prepared for that, and it will weigh on his mind. It will weigh on his mind, but he's also a very experienced campaigner by the sounds of things. Not within Dark Horse, but that's a different story. But he is an experienced campaigner. But next week is Long Beach. He's got a margin. The points are actually updated. It's a big shout out to the Dark Horse admins here. They do a phenomenal job. The points are always updated within 10, 15 minutes of the race finishing. He's got a 34-point lead at this stage over Henry Bennett. There's a 10-point gap from there back to Nick DeGroot. So Nick DeGroot's closed the margin back down to Henry Bennett quite aggressively. So that's fantastic. However, I think at Long Beach, just because it's Long Beach, you have to drive at 9/10. You can't go out there and run it at 100% the whole time. You cannot, because you are flirting with disaster 7 or 8 times a lap at Long Beach. So if you can reduce that to 3 times a lap at Long Beach, in the situation that he's in, I think he's got to do it. Long Beach is going to be a big, big question mark. I always put a big question mark over Long Beach in the standings. I think of all the races, this is the one that I'm most afraid of heading into the final shootout, final run to the end. So this is, oh man, next week is, I to be perfectly honest with you, Seth, next week decides the championship for me.
And it's interesting you kind of bring that up because a driver that we talk to quite frequently up in the podium at the speedways, but not at the road courses, is Nick DeGroot. And he's told us that, he can run decently there, but he just isn't able to find the speed necessary to be up there inside the top 3, or more importantly, at the front of the field. Best finish so far this season at a road course, 4th at Watkins Glen. He has a 5th place run at Canadian Tire, and then he had a 7th place run at the second race of the season at Road America. You can't really rely, I don't think, if you're Nick DeGroot and you are 3rd seed right now in the point stage, you can't rely on a 4th, 5th, 6th place finish next week, because I think then by time maybe getting a win at Texas the following week, even if you do that, it's a little too late.
I agree with that, but at the same time, like, let's use the real world's 2021's championship decider for IndyCar from Long Beach as probably the best guide to form. Pato O'Ward gets contacts at the end of lap 1 because somebody is trying to race for their championship and sends it a little bit deep into the final hairpin on the lap. He knocks the rear end of O'Ward, and that's it. That O'Ward's car breaks a drive shaft a couple laps later, heading to that right rear corner of the car, and day over. Even though he got the car back out there, by then it was too late. The championship's done. There's nothing he can do about that. That, for me, is Long Beach. That is completely and utterly Long Beach. IndyCar saw a lot of cautions there. You're not going to have cautions in Dark Horse. You aren't going to have that ability to get yourself back into the race even with a fast repair. You've got to try and drive that car as best as you possibly can, and there are other cars that are flying up on you. They have a race. You have to respect those guys. You cannot just let them fly and crash into you, because then that's their season over. The other thing is, the walls are so close to the edge of the track, you bounce off the wall, you jag back out, somebody who's trying to take avoiding action all of a sudden just ends up in the side of you just because of the nature of the walls and the cars. Next week is going to be the most difficult race of the season for every driver, full stop, no questions asked.
Well, you say that the championship could very well be decided next week at Long Beach. I feel like the roles have been reversed, and I have to tell you to put the crystal ball away now, but we'll have to wait and see if the prediction holds true. Obviously, it's going to be the first time it appears on the schedule, not the first time that a number of these drivers have been at that circuit, but it's going to be very interesting to see how that last road course stop in the season plays its part before we eventually get to Texas and the championship week at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But, kind of just to echo the words of Rick Raybon tonight, what a race here at Iowa. Short track racing, only one caution here tonight. Unbelievable battling all the way through the field. We saw green flag pit stops, pit road played a part, the outside wall played a part. My goodness, it's just good old short track racing here tonight. And, we may even look back at this race at Iowa by the time we get to Indianapolis and say, yep, that definitely played its part in this championship picture as well.
Oh man, I mean, you take the one caution out of the race, and I think that the group might be level with Henry Bennett. They'd be 10, 15 points closer. So yeah, I think you're right. And at the start of things, I said that caution flag may play a huge factor in this race, and we've seen it right throughout the season. It's just those caution flags that, like I said, I don't think there's been a race this season that has not been impacted by a caution flag in the middle of green flag stops. The green flag stops have come, which has been the best part. I haven't seen another league of this talent level that has run so many of their laps green flag, and the caution flags just happen at all the worst possible times for a lot of these guys here. You can say Matt Wagner's championship is decided by two things. He's